Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Monday, January 6th, 2025, and you're listening to Alex's News. Today in Riverside, we're looking at a mild winter day with temperatures reaching 71.8 degrees and dropping to a cool 52 degrees. Coming up on today's show, we'll explore the significant increase in Social Security payments affecting millions of public sector workers across the country. We'll also examine the implications of President Biden's offshore drilling restrictions and the potential challenges in overturning this policy. Finally, we'll discuss why experts believe 2025 could be a pivotal year for cryptocurrency, potentially reshaping the future of digital finance. All this and more, coming up on Alex's News. Our top story this morning. A major change is coming for millions of public service workers across the nation. We're joined by our political correspondent Ethan Matthews with details on President Biden's signing of the Social Security Fairness Act. Ethan, this is being called a historic moment for public servants.
That's right, Grace. According to the Associated Press, President Biden signed this landmark legislation just yesterday, effectively eliminating two provisions that have long reduced Social Security benefits for public service workers. We're talking about the Windfall Elimination Provision, or WEP, and the Government Pension Offset, known as GPO.
Can you break down exactly what this means for the affected workers?
Certainly. The Bangor Daily News reports that approximately 2.1 million people who were affected by WEP will see their monthly payments increase by an average of $360. As for those affected by GPO, about 745,679 people will receive significant increases. Living spouses will see about $700 more per month, while surviving spouses could receive up to $1,190 more.
That's substantial. Who exactly benefits from these changes?
The Star Tribune indicates this will primarily impact teachers, firefighters, police officers, and other public service workers. What's particularly noteworthy is that these changes are retroactive to January 2024, meaning beneficiaries will receive back payments once the system is updated.
But I understand there are some concerns about the financial impact. What can you tell us about that?
Yes. According to the Congressional Budget Office, these changes will add approximately $195 billion to the federal deficit over the next decade. It's also expected to accelerate Social Security's projected insolvency date by about 6 months. Current projections show potential insolvency by 2033 or 2034, depending on whether you're looking at CBO estimates or Social Security trustees' figures.
And what about the implementation of these changes? How soon can people expect to see these increases?
That's still somewhat unclear, Grace. The Social Security Administration is currently at its lowest staffing levels in decades, and they're now tasked with developing and implementing these new rules. They'll need to process retroactive payments while managing their current workload, so the timeline for full implementation isn't yet determined.
Thank you for that comprehensive breakdown, Ethan. We'll be sure to keep our viewers updated as this story develops. And now for our second story of the morning. Joining us to discuss President Biden's major announcement on offshore drilling is our energy policy correspondent, Chloe Martinez. Chloe, tell us about this sweeping new ban.
Thanks, Grace. Just today, President Biden has announced what could be one of his final significant environmental actions before leaving office. A massive ban on new offshore oil and gas drilling that covers more than 625 million acres of U.S. federal waters. According to the New York Times, this ban extends across the entire eastern seaboard, Pacific coast, eastern Gulf of Mexico, and Alaska's northern Bering Sea.
What legal authority does the president have to implement such an extensive ban?
The president is acting under the 1953 Outer Continental Shelf Lands Act, which gives the White House significant power to protect federal waters from oil and gas leasing. Interestingly, as reported by the Associated Press, the law doesn't explicitly allow presidents to reverse these protections once they're in place.
How might this impact our current oil production?
According to the American Petroleum Institute, the economic impact might be less dramatic than some might expect. The western Gulf of Mexico, which produces about 14% of total U.S. crude oil, around 2 million barrels daily, isn't affected by this ban. However, API's CEO Mike Summers has raised concerns about potential lost government revenue, estimating it could exceed $8 billion by 2040.
What's been the response from the Trump transition team?
They've been quite vocal in their opposition. According to Offshore magazine, they've labeled the ban as disgraceful and claim it's designed to keep gas prices high. President-elect Trump has promised to promote what he calls energy dominance and increase drilling. However, history suggests he might face significant challenges. During his first term, federal courts rejected his attempts to reverse similar protections put in place by President Obama.
And what's the Biden administration's justification for this move?
The administration argues that these areas have minimal fossil fuel potential, and that the environmental, public health, and economic risks to coastal communities far outweigh any potential benefits. Environmental groups are celebrating, with Oceana's Joseph Gordon calling it an epic ocean victory.
Thank you for that comprehensive breakdown, Chloe. Here are some other headlines. Nippon Steel and U.S. Steel have filed a lawsuit against the Biden administration after the president blocked their proposed $15 billion merger deal. The administration cited national security concerns, marking the first time such a blockage has involved a non-Chinese company. A major winter storm is wreaking havoc across multiple states, prompting emergency declarations and widespread closures of schools and government offices. Heavy snow and ice have created hazardous travel conditions throughout the affected regions. In South Korea, a tense standoff continues outside the presidential compound, where impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol remains barricaded. Investigators attempted but failed to serve a detention warrant following his impeachment for declaring martial law last month. A deadly New Year's Day attack in New Orleans' French Quarter has left 14 dead and dozens injured after an Army veteran used Meta smart glasses to scout the area before driving a truck into crowds and engaging in a fatal shootout with police. In the occupied West Bank, 3 Israelis were killed and several others injured in a shooting attack near the town of Kedumim. Israeli security forces are currently pursuing the perpetrators. And now for our third and final story this morning. The cryptocurrency market is experiencing what many are calling a golden moment, with Bitcoin reaching unprecedented heights. Joining us to discuss this is our financial correspondent, Ethan Parker. Ethan, what's behind this surge in Bitcoin's value?
Thanks, Grace. According to WUNC, Bitcoin has indeed hit a remarkable milestone, surpassing $100,000 for the first time just last month. One of the biggest drivers has been BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF, known as IBIT, which now holds over 548,505 Bitcoin, valued at an astounding $52.81 billion.
That's a substantial amount. What's the significance of these institutional players getting involved?
Well, Grace, this institutional adoption represents a major shift in how traditional finance views cryptocurrency. The SEC's approval of investment funds tracking Bitcoin's price has opened the floodgates for mainstream financial integration. And looking ahead, there's potentially more significant development on the horizon.
I understand there are some interesting political developments as well. What can you tell us about that?
That's right. The current administration has made some bold moves in the crypto space. They've promised to make the U.S. the crypto capital of the planet, and have made key appointments including Paul Atkins as SEC head and David Sachs as the nation's first crypto and AI czar. Additionally, Representative French Hill, who's now chairing the House Financial Services Committee, has expressed strong support for crypto development.
And there's been some discussion about a strategic Bitcoin reserve. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, this is particularly interesting. Senator Cynthia Lummis has proposed legislation for the U.S. to purchase 200,000 Bitcoins annually for 5 years. At current prices, that would mean an investment of about $20 billion per year, with a mandatory 20-year holding period. It's quite unprecedented for a government to consider such a significant cryptocurrency investment.
What are analysts saying about Bitcoin's future prospects?
According to market projections, some analysts are predicting Bitcoin could reach $200,000 this year. The general consensus shows a range between $75,500 and $150,000, with some optimistic targets as high as $180,000. Ethereum, the second largest cryptocurrency, is expected to trade between $2,670 and $5,990.
Are there any concerns about these developments?
Yes, there are. Carol Alexander from the University of Sussex has raised important concerns about investor protection. She warns that while friendlier legislation might boost the market, it could potentially leave regular investors vulnerable to exploitation by professional traders.
Thank you for that comprehensive update, Ethan. That's certainly a space we'll continue to watch closely. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King, with Claude Sonnet 3.5, the Perplexity API, and the Google Cloud Text-to-Speech API. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.